After being kicked out of the house by her husband, a woman seeks refuge in the former residence of her deceased grandmother, taking with her only her daughter and the painful memories of the past. Amidst the despair and the attempt to rebuild her life, she decides to open the old mailbox, not imagining that inside, hidden among old papers, lies a secret that could completely change the course of their lives.
Hello, my friends. I am Aria, and this is the Aria Stories channel. I hope you enjoy this story.
Elise looked out the window of the old countryside house, watching the sun rise behind the distant hills. It had only been a week since she and Sophia, her 1-year-old daughter, had arrived there, but it felt like an eternity. The memories of her previous life, the failed marriage, the constant humiliations, the abrupt expulsion, seemed to belong to someone else, in another life. She took a deep breath, feeling the familiar scent of old wood and the wildflowers growing in the abandoned garden. This place, the house of her late grandmother Clara, was both a refuge and a new beginning. Elise had always been close to her grandmother. Clara was a strong woman who had practically raised her family alone after the untimely death of her husband. During the summer vacations, Elise would spend weeks in this same house, listening to Clara's stories about perseverance and courage. Those summers were the happiest moments of her childhood, full of laughter, learning, and unconditional love. When Clara passed away almost 3 years ago, Elise was devastated. The pain of the loss was so intense that she never had the courage to return to that house. Now, ironically, it was the only place she could go. A soft cry pulled her from her thoughts. Sophia had woken up. Elise went to the makeshift bedroom where an old but still sturdy crib housed her daughter. She picked up the girl, feeling the comforting warmth of her little body. "Good morning, my love," she whispered, kissing her daughter's forehead. "Shall we have breakfast?" While preparing a bottle for Sophia and a cup of coffee for herself, Elise reflected on the events that had brought them there. Her marriage to Paolo, which had started with so much promise, had quickly deteriorated after Sophia's birth. They had moved into Paul's parents' house right after the wedding, a decision Paul had defended as financially sensible. Initially, Elise had agreed, thinking it would be a temporary situation. But the months turned into years, and what was supposed to be a help became a prison. Elise's in-laws, especially her mother-in-law, made sure to constantly remind her of her precarious position in the house. "Another day without paying rent, huh?" was the frequent comment from her mother-in-law, always accompanied by a malicious smile that made Elise feel small and insignificant. Paul, for his part, seemed oblivious to his wife's discomfort. To him, not having to worry about rent or mortgage was a blessing, and he ignored the hints and malicious comments as if they were insignificant. When Sophia was born, Elise decided to stay home to take care of their daughter. Paolo agreed, stating that as the provider, it was his duty to support the family. But for Elise, this decision meant losing even more of her voice and autonomy within that household. How could she complain or express her dissatisfaction if she wasn't contributing financially? Tensions began to build up. Paolo became increasingly distant, as if his only role was to bring money home. The arguments became frequent, with Paolo admitting he did not know how to be a father and questioning if he really wanted that life. The breaking point came after a particularly heated argument. Exasperated, Paolo shouted that if Elise was so unhappy, she should leave. He wanted a divorce. At that moment, Elise felt as if the ground had disappeared beneath her feet. With Sophia in her arms and a few hastily packed bags, she left the house, not knowing where to go. It was her mother who suggested Grandma Clara's house. "It's been abandoned for years," she said, "but it could be a good place for you to start over." And so, with her mother's help in the early days, Elise found herself back in the place she had loved so much in her childhood, now with her own daughter in her arms. The first days were difficult. The house was in terrible condition, covered in dust and in need of many repairs. But Elise was determined. Day by day, she cleaned, organized, and fixed what she could. Sophia, despite her young age, seemed to feel her mother's determination. The girl, usually restless, was surprisingly calm while Elisa worked, playing by herself or watching her mother with her big curious eyes. On the third day, while cleaning the attic, Elise found an old box full of photos and letters. Among them, there were several pictures of her as a child, playing in the garden with her grandmother. Seeing those images brought tears to her eyes, but also a renewed sense of purpose. Clara always said that life was made of ups and downs, and that the important thing was to keep your head up during difficult times. That night, after putting Sophia to bed, Elise sat on the porch looking at the stars. For the first time since she had arrived, she felt a twinge of hope. Maybe, she thought, she could turn this place into a true home for herself and Sophia. The next morning, while organising the kitchen, Elise decided to check the old mailbox at the end of the stone path. To her surprise, the box was crammed with old letters and documents. In the middle of the pile, she found a sealed envelope with her grandmother's name on it. Curious, Elise opened the envelope and began to read. It was a letter from a lawyer, dated just a few months before Clara's death. As she read, her eyes widened in astonishment. The letter revealed that Clara had taken out a private pension in Elise's name. Therefore, the value of this pension had not been divided as inheritance among Clara's children. The lawyer explained that Clara had specifically chosen this type of investment to secure Elise's future, and that the money would be available to her as soon as she discovered the existence of the fund. With trembling hands, Elise reread the letter several times, hardly believing what she saw. She remembered how Clara always talked about the importance of being independent and having her own financial security. Could this be her grandmother's final gift? The next day, leaving Sophia in the care of her mother, Elise went to the bank mentioned in the letter. There she discovered that Clara had invested a significant amount in a private pension for her, with specific instructions that the money should be used for the well-being of Elise and her future children. Sitting in the bank manager's office, Elisa cried. They were not tears of sadness, but of relief and gratitude. With this money, she could not only renovate the house, but also ensure a stable future for Sophia. She could go back to school, maybe even start her own business. In the months that followed, the transformation in Elise's life was remarkable. The reason why she never knew about this inheritance was a mystery to everyone. The old country house where she and her daughter lived gained new life. Elise hired professionals to make the necessary repairs, but insisted on being actively involved in the process. She personally chose each paint colour and every new piece of furniture, always thinking about creating a welcoming environment for Sophia. The garden, once abandoned, blossomed again. Elise planted colourful flowers and even a small vegetable garden. Sophia loved playing among the plants, her laughter echoing through the yard, reminding Elise of her own childhood summers in that same place. As the house transformed, Elise also felt a change within herself. The insecurity and fear that had dominated her in recent years started to dissipate. In their place, a confidence grew that she hadn't felt in a long time. She started making plans for the future. She decided that, when Sophia was a bit older, she would go back to studying. Maybe psychology, something that had always interested her. Or perhaps opening a small inn, taking advantage of the region's natural beauty. One day, while playing with Sophia in the garden, Elise received an unexpected call. It was Paolo. His voice sounded hesitant, almost regretful. He asked how they were doing and said he missed Sophia. Elise took a deep breath before responding. Part of her wanted to scream, to express all the hurt and anger she still felt. But looking at Sophia, smiling innocently while playing with a butterfly, she realized that anger no longer had a place in her life. "We're fine, Paolo," she responded calmly. "Sophia is growing up fast. If you want, you can come visit her someday." After hanging up, Elise sat down on the grass, pulling Sophia into her lap. She hugged her daughter tightly, inhaling the scent of her hair. "You know, my love," she whispered, "your great-grandmother Clara used to say that life is like a garden. Sometimes we need to pull out some plants so that others can grow. But if we are patient and take good care of it, there will always be beautiful flowers to bring us joy." Sophia looked up at her mother with her big, curious eyes. smiling as if she perfectly understood what she meant. That night, after putting Sophia to bed, Elise sat on the porch as she did every night. She looked up at the starry sky, reflecting on how much her life had changed in such a short time. There were challenges ahead, she knew. Being a single mother wouldn't be easy. But for the first time in a long while, she felt truly at peace. The gentle breeze carried the scent of the garden flowers. Elise closed her eyes, feeling enveloped by her grandmother's love, as if Clara were still there, watching over her and Sophia. "Thank you, Grandma," she whispered to the night, "for everything." And there, on that porch, under the starry sky, Elise knew that no matter what the future held, she and Sophia would be all right. They had each other, they had a home, and they had the strength and wisdom of generations of strong women running through their veins. Tomorrow was bright and full of possibilities, and Elise could hardly wait to see what it would bring. If you enjoyed, please give it a like and subscribe to the channel. Leave a comment with a number from 1 to 5 to let us know how much you liked the story. Also, watch the video that is currently on your screen. See you soon.